So yes, I did dye my hair. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was my first time dyeing my hair. Okay, I'm going to, oh, I already started recording. Perfect. Thank you, thank you. All right, well, welcome everyone. I hope you had a great weekend. Today, we're gonna go over the review problems that I assigned to you a week ago. We're gonna look at how we did those, and then we're going to look at the assignments from last week as well. Probably just the first two, I believe, because we didn't get to all of them in class. And then after that, we are going to be going over functions. This is a big day in your programmer lives. Functions are super important. They are the building blocks of how a lot of modern code runs, especially in Python. So I hope you're really excited to learn about functions. I'm excited to teach you about functions. And then after this week, you will know most of what we have put on our schedule for this summer. So I'm going to be adding, I haven't run out of things to teach you. So don't worry about that. But I do want to congratulate you on getting this far. Okay. As always, here are expectations. Please raise your hand and then I'll call, or raise your hand virtually, and then I will call on you to unmute if you would like to speak. Don't just unmute yourself because it's distracting for me and other students as well. Please do raise your hand if you have questions. I do want you to ask questions in the chat or the Discord or via email. Obviously, I can't respond to emails during class, but I can after class. So yes, please do let me know if you're confused. I do like to know that. We're going to be working with Replit today. And so I put this here so that I know to change slides to the review problems. So first, we're going to look at, if you remember, we have these problems here that I've given you a week to work on. It's just 2 of them. And I wanted to give you some extra practice combining loops, if statements, and all of that. So today's 7:18, we're going to go over those. All right, so here we have, write a Python program that will generate a multiplication table for any number specified by the user. The user should be able to input 2 values, the number they want a multiplication table for, and how high they want to multiply that number. And then I have some key elements to include in this solution. So user input, we've learned how to do that. Loops, definitely learned how to do that. Use a for loop to iterate from 1 to the multiplier limit. Lists, so we're going to be storing each statement as a string in that list. And then our code should print the list once it's finished. And then some conditional statements to make sure that the user doesn't input negative numbers. But we can assume that they're going to input an integer. So you don't need to worry about that for now. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that I need is some input. Okay, so I want to ask for 2 values, the number they want a multiplication table for and how high they want to multiply that number. So I'm going to put that in 2 different input statements here. So I'm going to say, what should I name this? Maybe base number. Okay, so I'm going to say multiplier. That's what I'm going to call my variable. That is the number they want the multiplication table for, equals input. And I'm going to convert this to an int, because we already know we want to do some multiplication with it, so it needs to be an integer. So I'm going to say input, enter the number you would like a multiplication table for. And then I'm going to have, let's see, what should this one be called? How high they want to multiply that number. I'm going to say, I'm going to call it num limit. We don't have to be too creative with names here in programming. And I'm going to get input. I'm going to wrap int around that so we can turn that into an integer, and it will say enter how high the multiplication table should go. Okay, so we've got those 2 things there. So we can check off this first bullet. So next, we need to use a for loop to iterate from 1 to the multiplier limit. So we're going to say for I in range, start at 1, go up to the multiplier limit, but the way that we phrased this, and if you interpreted that a different way, it's okay, but the way that I phrased it makes it sound like we want the multiplication table to start on 1 and end on the numbered limit that the user sets. So in this case, if we put it in like that, the range function, remember it's inclusive for the first number, exclusive for the last number, which just means it stops before it gets to our number limit. So I'm going to say number limit plus 1. The reason I added this plus 1 is because I actually want it to include the number limit here. I don't want it to stop before we get to that. So that's a common thing you'll see in Python with for loops is you'll see some sort of variable plus 1 as the end of this range function. Okay, so I have my multiplier, I have I, and I have my numbered limit. So I'm going to say answer. I'm going to make an answer variable that's just going to be multiplier times I, because we're just creating a multiplication table, right? So we're starting at 1 and we're going up to this limit. So I'm going to say answer equals multiplier times I, and I'm going to say answer string equals string multiplier, and then the plus this asterisk plus string number limit plus the string, equals, and then plus our string for answer. So this is a long way of saying we're going to create a string that starts with a multiplier. It has the time symbol. It has our not number limit. This should be I. Oh, almost messed myself up here because we're incrementing with I. So plus string I equals the answer. So see, we have multiplier I and then our answer. We're just adding some stuff in there to make it a string. And now we would need a list. So up here, I'm going to start just an empty list. So I'm going to call it mult table equals, I'm just going to have this empty list. And now down here, I can say mult table dot append. Remember, we can use that append function there. Answer string. Okay, let's check and make sure. Conditional statements. So store each multiplication statement in a list as a string. Check the user's input for any incorrect entries, such as negative numbers. So that's the last thing I need to work on here. So let's say I need to check. So I don't think it specifies if you need to keep asking for a correct number or if you want the program to end. Typically, you want the program to keep going and prompt the user to enter a correct input. So I am going to do a while loop. So I'm going to say while multiplier is less than 0, because we can include 0, 0 would be fine. Then I'm just going to copy and paste this. I'm going to add, enter a positive integer. And then the same thing here. After we get this num limit, we're going to check to make sure that num limit is not a negative number. Please enter a positive number. Okay, I see someone says small typo line 3. Well, multiplier, listen.
It moved to line 7. It's multiplication.
Oh. Yes.
I didn't know if it affected, so I just wanted to let you know.
Move to line 7.
It's the word
Oh, multiplication. I see what you mean. I thought you said I was doing multiplication. I was like, I'm not.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. No, that's totally good. I definitely want to know if I enter any typos.
Multiplication?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Okay, so we've got our checkers to check if we're entering correct input. If you used an if statement here, that works a little bit different because it will only run this once. So I'm using a while statement so that it will keep asking the user to enter correct input. And we don't want negative numbers. We've got our multiplication table that we started, and now we're going to use this for loop that takes us from 1 to our number limit and then creates this multiplication table. And now at the very end, I don't ask, you don't need to print any fancy version of this multiplication table. I'm just going to print the list. Some people like to mess around with using dashes to make a table and make it look nice. I hated those assignments when I was in college, so I'm not going to make you do that. You can just print this multiplication table. Okie doke. So, oh, I see another one. The I and okay, multiplication. Okay, yes, whoops. Okay, now it should be right. Let's see if our code works here. Oops, okay. So I'm gonna expand this so you can see it. Enter the number you would like a multiplication table for. Gonna say 10, make it easy on us to check. Enter how high the multiplication table should go. I'll say 10 again. And now we have this nice multiplication table. It's a multiplication list. We have 10 times 1 equals 10, 10 times 2 equals 20, and we have so on until we have 10 times 10 equals 100. So there we go. We've made a multiplication table. If you want to experiment around with this and make it pretty, you certainly can. That is, I don't find any joy in making my code, making my output pretty, unless I absolutely have to. Okay, so are there questions about this problem here? I know I just kind of sped through it. Like I said before, I like to do these live in front of you, even though I'm more likely to make mistakes in front of you. I like to do that for several reasons. One is that I know I, as a student, find it more engaging when a teacher live codes instead of just putting up an answer and showing us the answer. I find it interesting to see their thought process. As well as I want you to see that I am capable of making mistakes, even though I've been coding for a very long time. I still make simple mistakes all the time, and I don't want you to feel discouraged. So please use the virtual hand raising if you're gonna talk, because otherwise it's distracting. No, hold on, Tanya. Okay, so Tanya, are you able to find the raise hand button so that you shoot to the top of my screen? Okay, so go ahead, Tanya.
Cool.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, any questions? I'm gonna check the chat real quick. Awesome. Please do let me know if you have questions. It's hard for me to tell if people are being quiet because they're like, yeah, I'm bored, I understand all of this, or if they're being quiet because they're like, I'm totally lost. So if you need to private message me and be like, I'm lost, do that too. Okay. If there's no questions, I'll move on to practice 2. So this one uses a technique that we learned about last week with strings. So it says, write a Python program that converts a list of temperatures from Fahrenheit to Celsius and stores those converted values in a separate list. The list of Fahrenheit temperatures should be taken from the user. After that conversion, the program should find the average temperature in Celsius. So we have some key elements to include. So user input, allow them to enter a list of Fahrenheit temperatures. Assume that they will input a comma separated list of integers. So this is using what we learned last week on converting input to a list and then converting each value in a list, converting a string to a list using our handy dandy string functions. So I am going to Take that. And do this one. Okay, list of Fahrenheit temperatures. So I'm going to have, I'm just going to call it F input
What do you call a
equals input, enter a comma separated list of temperatures in Fahrenheit. Tanya, do you have a question?
what is your favorite color?
I've already told you that. We'll talk about our favorites at the end of class. Tanya and I discuss our favorites sometime. Let's see. So we have enter a comma separated list of temperatures in Fahrenheit. So then we can get that. This will come in as a string and we can create F list equals F input. Does anyone remember what method do I use to take a comma separated string and turn it into a list? Someone put in the chat. What is that method called? It's going to be F input dot something. Learned it last week.
Bracket.
Yes, split. Great job. F input dot split. And then what we're going to split on is this comma here. Awesome, split. Okay, so we've got our list now of Fahrenheit.
Hi.
And now, hey, Tanya, I need you to stay muted, all right? So let's say use a for loop to iterate over the list of temperatures, and then we're going to convert to Celsius.
Hi.
Okay, so now to go over our list, we're going to say, for, I'm going to call it temp in Fahrenheit list. I'm going to say C temp equals. So we're going to calculate from Fahrenheit to Celsius. It is Fahrenheit minus 32 times 5/9. So I'm going to say temp minus 32. This needs to be in parentheses. Don't forget your parentheses.
Subject.
Times 5/9. Hey, Tanya, I'm going to need you to stay muted or I'll have to kick you from the Zoom. If you have a question, please do raise your hand, but it's confusing to me when people are talking. Okay, times 5/9. And we're going to add that to a list. So I need to, up here, start a Celsius list. I'll just say C list equals an empty list. Now we can say C list dot append B temp. Okay, so we are creating a separate list for the Celsius temperatures. And implement error handling to account for potential issues with user input. So if it's something other than a number. I'm trying to remember why I kept this in here because we haven't looked at what you would need. Did anyone do this part? I'm curious. Okay. Okay, so it looks like people may not have done that part. Okay, so I'm gonna cross it out and then hopefully maybe I'll remember why I assigned that part because I don't think we've learned how to do that yet. But if we have and you knew how to do it, let me know if I'm just confused. Okay, and then at the very end, we want to calculate average. So there's a couple ways that you can calculate average by using the list. So one way you could do is you could say, for value in C list and then add those up and then, take the average. So add them up and then divide it by the length of the list. But there's also a very nice Python function that I think is just called average. Yep, AVG. And that is that will actually just print the average of a list. So we've got our temperatures, we're appending them. There is one thing that I forgot, and does anyone see it? What did I forget to do in my code? So I took my input, got the input, I took that string, I converted it into a list, and then I jump into this thing right here and start doing math. What did I forget? Does anyone see it?
Yeah, you forgot to convert to integers.
Yep, correct. Forgot to convert that to integers. So I need to say, I can do a couple different ways. So I've split that, and then what I'm going to do is say temp equals int temp to make sure we're working with an integer here. Maybe I'll split it out. So temperature integer is the int version of that. So now we should all have integers, and that is looking correct to me. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, enter comma separated list of temperatures in Fahrenheit. Gonna do 32 because that should be 0, 34, 40. Let's see. Oh, and I didn't print anything. Woohoo. Print C list. Okay, and I will need to remind myself as we run this, if when we do split, it won't get rid of the spaces, but I'm wondering if when we convert it, it will have those spaces in there or not. Oh, it did it. Okay. So what I was talking about was these spaces here that you enter when you have, like if you say 32 comma, and then you add a space, that technically adds a string there. And when we split it, it will still have that space in there, but when we convert it to an integer, it gets rid of that space. So I couldn't remember if Python would do that automatically or not. So here we go. We have our temperatures in Fahrenheit, and then we wanted to print the average, which I forgot to do. So we can print average, it's just AVG, and then put in your list. So if we run that again, it's going to say 1, 2, 3. Oops. Name AVG is not defined. Maybe it's mean. I always forget. Name mean is not defined. I know that there is a built-in Python function for averaging. Brendan, do you know it? You can put it in the chat if you think of it. Okay, that's just something about Python. It has so many built-in functions, and then when you're coding live in front of someone, you always forget how to do that. Okay, so anyway, if you want to get the average temp, we're gonna say for temp in C list, and then you can just add all of them up. So we can say, or like total equals, which doesn't make sense for temperatures, but that's okay. Plus equals temp. And then at the very end, we're gonna say print total divided by length of our list. So this is just a coding way to do an average. If you don't have a built-in function, I know there is a built-in function for it. And it's not, I don't think you should need to import statistics, but maybe you do. Okay, yes. David, I saw your hand shoot up and then go back down. Total is not defined. Ah, that's why. Okay, and then it gives us average temperature right there. Okay, yeah, so there isn't a built-in, so you can use the sum function. I guess that's what I was thinking of. So another way of doing that, thank you so much, Brendan, for saving me. So another way to do that is you can say, you know, there's the sum function where you can sum up a list, and then the average would be the sum and then divided by the length. And when you switch between as many things as I do, you'd be surprised I don't do averages of lists a lot. I'm usually doing averages of other types of data types, other data types. And then we, of course, want to print that. Okay. There we go. Also does the same thing. Okay, thank you for coming along with me on that journey. And like I said, I do like to show you that I am capable of making mistakes. Maybe that's not fun. Well, it's not very fun for me, but maybe it's not fun for you either. I don't know. Okay, so those are our 2 practice problems. I'm not really sure how many people were able to work on them. Please let me know if you have questions on them though. And I think the other problems that I wanted to look at, we went over this one in class, and then I said to work on this one. These 2 are extra assignments if you would like to do them, but we didn't get to them in class. So here's task 2 from last week. It says write a program that takes a list of numbers as input from the user and performs the following tasks. So kind of a similar thing here. We're going to take a list of numbers and then convert from that list to an actual list, from the input string to a list. So print the sum, print the max and minimum, print list in ascending, descending, and then print the average. So pretty similar to this. So I'm just going to say enter a comma separated list of numbers. I'm going to call it num input. Now I'm going to say num list equals num input dot split. We're going to split based on that comma. And the first thing that we want to do is print the sum of all of the numbers. So I am pausing because I think I need to do something a little dumb. So I'm going to say for I in num list I equals int num list I. Of course, this won't work for just any number, so I'm going to say integers. Okay, so this is me converting all of these numbers up here from strings to integers. The next thing that we want to do is print all of this, print the sum of the numbers and then all of that math. Okay, so now we should have integers. I believe there is a better way of doing this, but with the tools that I have given you this summer, you can just go through for I in num list. That was almost bad. You can just go through and convert each one to an integer separately. Okay, next one. We want to print.
Hold on a second. For I in num list by,
oh
that
yeah,
sounds
you're
really
right.
sketchy.
You're right. Yes, because that's wrong. Thank you. Okay, yes. So this is what I meant. For I in range 0 to the length of num list I equals integer version of num list I, and then let's just print type I just to make sure Miranda actually knows what she's doing. Okay. Enter comma separated list of integers 1, 2, 3. class int. So I don't need that +1 here. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for catching that. Okay, so anyway, I've converted it after that. Y'all, I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't code live in front of people. Now we can print the sum and the min and the max. Okay, so these are all built-in functions in Python. And so what I wanted you to do was get to this and either think, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to do some more research on Python and see if there are functions that will help me. And if you did that, you would find that you have sum, max, and min. Or you said, I don't know how to do this with one function, but I know how to do it through a loop, and maybe you did it that way. So, but you can just say no, sum list equals sum num list. I can print that. See maximum and minimum, same thing. You can say max equals max of that number list. Minimum is the minimum of that number list. Average would be the sum of our list divided by the length of our list. And then what did we want? Ascending order, descending order, average was last. Okay. So we had, if you remember, we had dot sort. So we can print our list dot sort. And then if we want it in reverse order, we can print list dot sort with the little argument reverse equals true. Now, if I run this, hopefully it works. 6, none, none, 2.0. Now I'm just starting to doubt if I even know the statistics functions in Python. Oh no, okay. I see what happened, sorry. So sometimes in Python, when you call something like this and then you say print it, it does not do what you want, and it may print a none type. So now I'm going to reassign sorted list. Okay, interesting. Does anyone see the error that I made? This is embarrassing. We didn't print this, but that's not the issue. Yes, Brendan.
Okay, just wanted to raise my hands to make sure I was clear to help you. What are we looking for?
It's printing none. I think it's for
Printing none.
that. Yeah, so it prints the sum, and then before I didn't have these print statements, and then it says none, none, and then it prints the average. And I think this might just be a list thing that I forgot
Kind of
So
might have to help you search this up like through the documentation, like what the dot sorts
yeah,
outputs in the first place.
oh, so sometimes, okay, let's try this. This always gets me.
Oh
Mutable
wait,
variables,
wait,
numList.sort.
yeah, the sort function isn't meant to output any value. That may be why.
It just changes it.
Yes, it just
No,
sorts through the list in order, but if you print something, it will not return you anything.
right. There we go. Okay, so sorry for that. Thank you so much, Brendan. Sometimes I just need someone else to look at it.
I just told you what sort does. I wish I could have helped you more.
No, it's okay. Okay, so what happened there, and apologies for my confusing way of going about this. I think my brain is not fully on right now, but we can call numList.sort. If you print numList.sort, it doesn't do anything because what this function does is what this method does is it changes the list that we have. So it just goes and changes that list in memory for us. And then if you print just it doing that, it's going to be none because it's a Python thing. Just one of those things you have to forget and then do in front of other people and then remember again. So I apologize if that was confusing to you. Please let me know and I can do that again another time. Okie doke. So,
Goofy.
yep. Okay, so please let me know. I know that was a little confusing. Do you have questions on the problems that we went over? Yes, David.
Is there a non-in-place sorting method or function or whatever, or do you just need to copy it and then sort it?
By in place, do you mean like it's changing your original list?
Yeah, sorry, I know that it may not actually be in place, but yeah, is there a version that does not mutate the original list, or do you just
No,
have to
it will,
copy?
yeah, it will always change the original list, which is what I forgot. And so if you want it to not change your original list, you just have to create another variable. So like other list equals something. I mean, by create another variable, I mean you like create like new list equals numList, and then you
That will
say
be sufficient. That does a
new
deep
list
copy,
sort.
or
It creates a new variable.
I know it creates a new variable, but does it do a deep copy, or is it just going to end up sorting both of them?
Where is most?
It just it'll just sort the one.
Yeah, the sort only targets one of the variables. So if you have
Yes.
two copies, your sort will run through one of them, and then you'll have both the original and the modified version.
So if
So
I
you're
show
saying
you,
that equals for lists does a deep copy, or a copy on write.
The dot sort on its own, it will
No,
modify the
I'm not
original,
talking about the dot sort. I'm talking about the equals.
the equals. Yes, anytime you use the equals,
it's just
going
an
to-
assignment operator.
Yes,
So
it
it's
assigns,
assigning a value to it's assigning a value in memory to new list.
and it overwrites the original.
Yeah, so it's not, so when I say my new list equals my list, it's not a pointer. It's actually just creating a new variable in a different spot in memory that has the same value as my list. Is that what you're asking? Okay, I see nods. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know if I was muted or not. Yeah, that's surprising. Okay,
Yes.
I would have expected pointer assignment. Okay.
No, I'm confident in saying I've never seen pointers in Python. So if they exist, they are not used a lot.
Oh,
I don't mean like. Sorry, I mean reference whatever. Like I would have expected something else.
Okay.
Okay.
So here, just to prove it to you, I'll say my list dot sort. I'm just gonna say reverse equals true.
Hi.
And then I'm going to have print my list and, print new list. So if we run this, then we have, oh, maybe I am wrong. Huh. Okay, maybe you're right, David. Today's not my day.
Okay, there. If I'm not muted, there is a copy method that
Yeah.
does a copy. Well, it's a shallow copy in that it doesn't deeply copy all the elements. But yeah, there is a copy method.
Okay.
But like you said earlier, mutability is just like
It's
really hard to think
weird.
about.
Yes. Okay, I'm so sorry. I think I broke my brain. Thank you, David, for taking me through that. Okay, y'all, I don't deal with lists hardly ever or strings.
Yeah, so
I
you can
do
fix this
machine
using new
learning.
list.
Yeah.
New list equals my list dot copy parentheses.
Copy. Let's see. Okay. There we go. That's what I wanted.
Yes.
Okay.
Every time
Okay.
Miranda dyes her hair, she tunes into an alternate self, which may or may not be experienced at programming.
Yes. Well, the funny thing is that it has been so long since I have done stuff with lists, because now I do a lot of stuff with machine learning and AI, and lists don't come up a whole lot in machine learning.
Unless we're doing data sorting or data management, I hear is the bane of many programmers' existences.
Yeah, so that just goes to show, always brush up on the basics, especially before you get in front of everyone and tell them how to do it. So, okay, apologies, everyone. Seriously, if that did confuse you and you're like, I'm just a ball of confusion right now, reach out to me and I will go over that again, or I'll post the solutions. For now, let's talk a little bit about functions so that we can get away from watching random mess up in fabulous ways. And then we'll just end, and I'll leave a couple minutes at the end for questions. Okie doke. So, completely switching gears here, we're learning about functions. So in programming, we already know that we are writing a set of instructions, and we can put those in a file, like a Python file, and then our computer will read those instructions line by line. Well, we can save a specific set of instructions by creating a function, and then this allows it to, okay. Sorry, it's just really distracting when that happens. Okay, sorry, my computer is now messing up. Okay, so programming, set of instructions. You save those instructions by creating a function. And one example of this is the print function. So that is a built-in Python function that prints to the console. We've used it several times. And we know this is a function. It's a built-in function in Python, and you notice it has those open and closed parentheses. We put a string inside of those to tell it to print that to the console. That's something built into Python that the creators of Python made, and then saved it to a function. So that comes with Python. So we can do something sort of like that, where we write our own instructions and then save that to a function that we can call later. So we can build our own functions too. First step in writing a function is we need to define it. And so this uses something called the def keyword, DEF. It stands for define, along with the function name. So you're going to name your function. So when you define the function, you name a function. Always follow your function name with parentheses. I won't go into why, just always do that. So we have def my function, that's the name that I gave my function, open parentheses, close parentheses, and then this colon here. So everything inside the function that we want this function to do, we're indenting, And so I just have some example here. It's just a comment. It says, this is my function. That's not really going to do anything. But the point is that I want you to see we have def, the name of your function, open and close parentheses, and then a colon. So this def keyword is allowing us to define the function that we want to use later. Those two slides were the same. Okay, this is what I wanted to get to. So here are just some of the syntax that goes into defining a function. So we have this def keyword here. We have this function name, parentheses, colon, and then indented code. That's very important here. Python's all about indentations. We have indented code. But after we define the function, it's not going to do anything. So if I just have this, if I show you an example, so if I'm just going to say, def my function, open close parentheses, colon. Let's just say all I want my function to do is print hello. Now I'm going to run this. Nothing happened. That is because defining the function is not the same as actually using that function. So here you've just said, Python, I want to define a function that is this print statement. It should print hello. You haven't told Python to do anything with that. So to actually run your function, you do what is called a call. And a call is when you just write out the function name and then those parentheses again. We'll talk about what those parentheses mean next time. So now if I run this, it will run my function. Back to slideshow. So that is what I mean by calling a function. So to actually run the code that's inside of that function, you're just going to call it with the function name. So if I have a function called say hello, I'm just going to say hello. And then once you define that function like we did earlier, it just becomes a command that you can use in the rest of your Python script. What's important is that the function has to be defined before you can use it. You can't, so for example, if I go back up here, I can't put my function up here because we haven't defined it yet. Python goes line by line. So I haven't defined it yet. It's going to give me an error. It says name, my function is not defined. Error messages are useful. It's saying that function is not defined. So I need to always remember that you have to define it first. Switching around between slides and Replit. Must define before you call it, or else Python won't know what you're talking about. So here's another example, and this will be the last example for today probably. So we have some function, we define it, I put some code here. This is just to fill in the space. And then I'm going to call my function down there. So we're defining the function up here and calling it down here. So what you may see, and you have seen in a couple examples that I've snuck in throughout the class, is that a lot of people use main, the main function, to define their main body of code. So you may have seen me do something like this, where I say def main, and then it does something, print hello, print 1 + 1, or something like that. And then at the very end of the file, I have the call to main. And this is where it actually goes through main and does all of the things. So we've seen a couple examples of that, and I will explain in more detail what we can use functions for and why you might want them. But that's our brief introduction to functions here. I'm going to put this chart back because I like it. So I know that was a lot of examples that we went through today, and then a little bit of new information. So I'll end a bit early so that people have time to stay on and ask questions, especially if you did some of those assignments and you were confused about some of them. So you're free to go. If you have questions, please let me know. As far as assignments go, if you weren't able to do these problems here, please do those. And if you did all of the problems and you would like extra stuff to do, try out task 3 and 4, which we did not go over today on the strings and list slides. All right, sorry, there's lightning right outside my window. Okay, you are free to go. Please stay if you have questions.
Hi, Miranda. I don't necessarily have questions. I'm having to rewatch stuff. It's just all of
Okay.
this is me, and I just want to say thank you for putting it on YouTube because it gives
Oh,
me
good.
time. So thank you. And it's
Yeah.
definitely a challenge to have the class on my phone while I'm working on my iPad, but I make it work. And so like
Okay.
if I can watch it on TV and kind of get it bigger. So thank you.